Hello, everyone. How are you? This is Cantra Gaston Bogomolny, broadcasting from Beth Dora Benny Rock campus in North Miami Beach, Florida, United States. So, well, today we have a very, very important subject, and this is the subject of humility, being humble. And, well, there are many things that I would like to talk to you about this. And hola Shoshana, how are you, Shoshana? So we have this half an hour of English, and then at 2:30, from 2:30 to 3, vamos a hacerlo, pero también en español para los que se sienten más cómodos hacerlo en español. So we know very well that that Moshe Rabbeinu, right? Who is Moshe Rabbeinu? Yes, Moses. And Moses was born last week in our parasha. And we studied a little bit of his story, but we know very well, moving forward in the history, that that Moshe became known as a person who is anav, to a person who is humble, and we learned that from the Torah as well, right? He is called, describe a Vaera-Anava, actually very humble. and the big question, is always when we get into whether humility has any relationship with humiliation. And unfortunately, those words, are very, very similar. And many people think that being humble is to be nobody. To be humble is to not say anything when you are in a place. To be humble is to be humiliated sometimes, I'm humble, so right? Even in my countries, people say that someone who comes from a humble family, and my means actually comes from a low income family. And that might have a relationship, with being humble. And so all these things that you have in your mind, these are things that you might think about. Okay, I'm a humble person. Actually, those who are watching on Facebook, I would love to see if you write, if you have a chance to write, unless you are driving, don't drive, don't write. But if you have a chance to text something, what is humility for you? What is humility for you? Let me see if some of our people from Facebook might be able to say something about it. So let's see if I can see. Okay. Okay. So Shoshana says that, being humble might be, being a good person, maybe, being kind of like kind, yes, but not to be done or to be actually taken care of or taking advantage of. Anyone else who might have also an opinion about what is humility, or to be humble, or to have humility? What does it mean for you? I saw Shoshana. I saw that. I just want to see if from our or people who are watching, they might have also other opinions. It would be nice to hear from a few of those. But if not, we'll continue. It's not a big deal. And then we'll talk about why actually, and I related this parasha, not me, but why many people relate this parasha also with humility. Okay. So being humble, maybe to try to say something positive. Thank you. No pensar que somos mejores ni peores que los demás, okay? Not to think that we are better or that we are worse than anyone or anyone else. Okay, what else do you think it might be? Humility or being humble? Okay, so we'll take what you just got there. So I want to read a little bit something for you, but first I want to share with you a mantra that I learned this week related to humility, and it says like this. It says, no less than my place, and then it says, no more than my place, no less than my space. So right here, no more than my place, no less than my space. There you go. No more than my place, no less than my space. No more than my place, no less than my space. Oh, no more than my place, no less than my space. Ay, 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 ay. No more than my place, no less than my space. No more than my place, no less than my space. It's a beautiful phrase that we can all probably learn from. Ahí está la traducción, no más de mi lugar y no menos que mi espacio. So let's see what this might mean for some of us. And so let's read a little bit about this. It's a writing from Alan Morinis. Alan Morinis is the founder of the Mozart Institute. I started to get a course, from there, the Mozart Institute, and they always ask the question is, why do we start when we talk about Mozart, talking that we can work on our character traits weekly, daily, and people start with this trait, this midah of humility. And and here is the big question is Rabbi Bachia Ibn Pakuda, who was a Musar rabbi and also a very important rabbi, and he had the text called The Duties of the Heart, also called in Hebrew the Chovot Alevavot. He wrote in Spain back in 1080, 1080, that means actually almost 1000 years ago. He said he helps, he helps everyone, direct this understanding of this posing of this question, why do we start when we talk about character traits and our personality, we talk about humility. And he said, on what do the virtues depend? And his answer is clear. It says, all virtues and duties are dependent on humility. This is a principle all later Musar teachers have endorsed. The first leg of the spiritual life involves the cultivation of humility, as we call in Hebrew, Anava. So already we got huge amount. I think it's so true what Rabbi Ibn Pakud is saying 1,000 years ago. I mean, and we think we invented psychology, right? So the Musar teachers, stress that humility is a primary soul trait, right? The character trait in Musar we call it soul trait, because there's nothing that our character or part of our personality that doesn't come really with some DNA or something in the GPS of our soul. So it's a soul trait, and our soul comes here, and we all come here to repair, to try to improve, to polish, to make it better. So every Musar teacher, they stress that humility is a primary soul trait to work on because it entails an unvarnished and honest assessment of who we really are. Without the accurate self-awareness, nothing else in your inner life will come into focus in its true measure. The measure being the essential meaning of the word of soul trait. In Hebrew, we call it midah. So as I said before, that it's unfortunate that the word humility sounds so much like humiliation, but it is easy also to get a very wrong impression, right? It says Alan Morinis, that, of this soul trait. Why? Because in the traditional Jewish understanding, right, humility has nothing to do with being the lowest, the most debased, shrinking creature on earth, the lowest of lowest. As a fact, Rav Kook, right, and we talked about Rav Kook before before the New Year's, I took 4 series of 4 classes each about Rav Kook, and he said something so beautifully. It says humility is associated with spiritual perfection. When humility affects depression, it is defective. So again, if humility is associated with spiritual perfection, and when humility affects depression, it is defective. When it is genuine, it inspires joy, courage, and inner dignity. Wow, amazing, right? Amazing, just beautiful what it says. And I'm going to write it here so you can relate to this. It's nice to have this. I love this, phrases. So I'm going to write it here on the Facebook page here, so you all have it. This was Rav Kook says. Humility is associated with spiritual perfection. When humility affects depression, actually it's something lower, right? Depression is the lowest. Depression is probably the worst case scenario of darkness. Is that what darkness, what actually, we call darkness, oscuridad, right? Is want to try is to get someone to be depressed because they feel hopeless to the maximal level. So When it's genuine, it inspires joy, courage, and inner dignity. So we have to watch ourselves. The whole idea of Musar is to really balance ourselves. I'm going to continue reading a little bit. Musar teaches that real humility is always associated with healthy self-esteem. This is so crucial, important. Do not, okay, don't get away from this. Just give me one second. So, so continuing. So this is the need to find the balance between a sense of unworthiness and a and low self-esteem, right? On the other hand, and a sense of pride or arrogance, and on the other is beautifully expressed by a Hasidic master called Rabbi Simcha Bunim. And you perhaps seen this. So everyone must have two pockets, right? One on the left, one on the right, and with a note in each pocket. I have actually two coins that were given to me by Stephen Sheck when I arrived to the synagogue, and they're beautiful. So you can have one on each pocket, and many times, uh, it says the idea from Rabbi Simcha Bonin, who's a Hasidic master, says the following, so that you can reach into the one or the other, depending on the need. When feeling lonely and depressed, discouraged, or disconsolate, one should reach into the right pocket and there find the words that says, "For my sake was the world created." For my sake was the world created. But when feeling high and mighty and you feel like so arrogant that you own the world, one should reach out in the left pocket and there find the words that says, "I am but dust and ashes." Wow. So I encourage you to have, write it down, right? And one says, "For my sake was the world created." When you feel so low and so like feel like you are discouraged, depressed, and desolate. And then on the other, you have, "I am but dust and ashes." When you feel like you own the world and you feel that you know everything and you feel like actually you're occupying more of your space and your place, right? So it is important, right, to understand that being humble doesn't mean being nobody. It just means being no more of a somebody than you ought to be. And that's what was written already there on the Facebook. So how else can we know that anava doesn't mean being a lowly, worthless nobody? It's what I said before. Moshe Rabbeinu, who is Moshe Rabbeinu? Moses, right? Who is called a very humble person, right? Cannot he was, the very humble more than any other person on the face of the earth. That's we read that on the book of Numbers in Bamidbar in the chapter. If you would like to find it, it's on chapter 12, verse 3. So now we're talking about the same Moses, the same Moshe, right? That is considered the greatest prophet who ever lived. The same Moshe, the same Moses that spoke to God face to face, the same Moses that challenged Pharaoh and said, like in this parasha, "Let my people go." If a leader as great as Moses depicted as having humility, because he could say, "Hey, I'm the best, right? I'm the one who liberated the people of Israel. I'm the one who face to face met God, right?" But then there must surely be more to humility than the shrinking meekness of we ordinarily associate with the term. So it has a different sense. And for this parasha, I and I'm reading for this amazing book that I mentioned many times. It's an amazing book called the Musar Torah Commentary, right? A spiritual path to living a meaningful and ethical life. It's edited by Rabbi Block, but at the same time is filled with amazing pages from on each parasha is a different essay and a different it's a different understanding, different way to write and to see something from Musar, but for this parsha, and it's written by different rabbi. So, in this one, I uh, there's a point here, and I want to read for you, and even say, this parsha. Moses.
we know in this parsha that Moses struggles, you know, um, he struggles several times, with this appointment, to be the leader of the Jewish people. And I think that actually, you know, these struggles, offer for all of us, several lessons, you know, and especially how we behave when failure stays us down. So when we face failure, many of us, have this. Um, Look, I mean, I have been teaching, now the music, since the COVID started. Like no, since COVID started, but since after Rosh Hashanah, I have been teaching the preschoolers, and I have classes, and I have a lot of classes, that actually they respond, and it's great, and they jump around, they do what you say. And then they have other classes, that are more challenging. Have these classes, and these kids who who challenge you more, right? They are there, they're looking at you, but they're not doing what you're asking. And you feel, my God, I have authority. And then, I mean, I'm the grown up here. I'm the one who has authority. I'm the one who has the guitar. I'm the one who knows the songs. I'm the one who is instructing them. I'm the specialist. I'm supposed to really be respected by them. And unfortunately, or fortunately, they challenge me. And believe me that when I go back home and to think about what I'm going to be teaching and how and what I think so much about, especially that class or those classes or those kids who challenge me, because I could really, in a very arrogant way, try to do it differently. But I try to really, stay where I am, and 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 I try to see, what's going on, what am I be doing wrong, or what is it that actually these kids need, and what do I need to understand, so that requires a lot of humility, saying, look, I've been doing this for 30 years, I've been really, I mean, I'm in charge, and you do what I say, right? But these are kids who are 4 years old, 5 years old, 3 years old, and they might challenge you, and you go like, huh? It requires a lot of humility to really try to make this happen in the right way. And so what I want to point here on the parasha specifically is the following, because where do we see Moses? So the most important part, what we see is that Moses, you know um in Exodus, right, and the book of Shemot, in this parasha, chapter 6 and verse 9, we have the following. It says, "Vadaber Moshe ken el bnei Israel, velo sham'u el Moshe mikotzer ruach ume'avoda kasha." So, but when Moses told this to the Israelites, they would not listen to Moses. Their spirit crushed by cruel bondage. So, listen well. Moses told this to the Israelites. Well, he talked to God. God told him, and he already said, if they don't listen to me, where he said they will listen to you. Okay, well, they will listen to what you say. He goes there, and then they would not listen to Moses, and their spirit crushed, because their spirits crushed by cruel bondage. So, in other words, something happens here, and then what the book says is, that despite of, that this is Moses, and there's a promise of redemption, and God, he's able to present himself, a God's messenger and everything. I mean, he comes like the big macher, right? Like the big boy who talked to God, who had a conversation, met face to face, got the burning bush, the snibble, and all of a sudden, you get that he goes, talks, and then nobody pays any attention. They don't listen to him. And so they just, what do the masters, the Hasidic masters, what they say about this, the Musar teachers say that the Israelites are simply just too overwhelmed, but they're things. I mean, so everything is just that They're so overwhelmed, the circumstances to internalize such a message. Moshe comes and says, I'm going to redeem you, I'm going to save you, from slavery. And it's just like, it's just too difficult for them to say. They don't get it. They're not there, right? That's what it means. Their spirits are crushed by cruel bondage. Someone who has been for hundreds of years. Some people already have passed away, right? In the generations, they've been there for only 400 years. These people, that's the only they think they know. So, the what the book suggests that we should be able, right, or we can, or we could empathize, with the despair Moses might feel, because, like I said before, it happened to me, and I'm just telling you something that happened just recently, but it happens all the time, right? Especially for us who are teachers. Like now, this is good because I'm talking and nobody. I don't know if you're listening or not. It's a good way to do it, like a monologue. Now, but it happens, right, to us as teachers, and it happens when we are in a meeting. It happens when we are sitting on a table with family, with friends, and sometimes you want to say something, you're not being heard, and and then it hurts. It hurts to I said, like, I mean, I'm talking. I mean, why are you listening to me? I'm trying to do this, and sometimes you say, like, you can put it on them. At the same time, most of the time we feel like we are failing. I'm failing to get across this message. I'm failing to from being a messenger. I'm failing on my task, on my mission. And Rabbi Menachem Mendel of Kotz, he noticed something strange in the text asked by Rabbi Menachem Mendel of Varkov, and it says, about this idea of God had the promise that God had made to Moshe, and said, "Veshama'u lekolecha." That was in the last parasha, right? And they say the Israelites will listen to you. Exodus chapter 3, verse 18, right? If this promise did not come true, can it be the case that God's words have failed to come to fruition? This is something to think about, right? Everyone might think about. I mean, if God said, "Yeah, we'll listen to you," and then they listen to him, then that means actually that God's promises didn't come true. So, our second rabbi, Menachem Mendel, he parses the verse carefully and says the following. He explains that the text is very specific to say lekolecha instead of saying, rather than saying be kolcha. That is, to your voice. They will listen to your voice, right? Rather than in your voice. Two different things. I read this, and I really thought about it. They will listen to your voice, not what in your voice. So, implying a looser connection between Moses' words and the people. The text seeks to say the following. It is your voice alone that the people will listen to, not the specific content of your words. So just imagine, the idea that someone is talking to them. That is what this Rabbi Menachem Mendel of Varkov is saying. It's like they will listen to your voice. They will hear someone, right, talking. Someone talking. That's already a message. It's a sign. Not so much about the intellectual part of it, what the deep message that you have. At least they know that they hear a voice. They never heard a voice before. Someone talking to them, talking about God. All of a sudden, they see this person, they hear the word God, they hear something, and that's already a sign. And and then it says, however, even if they cannot hear Moses' words, real details of the words of the message, they can hear his voice. They can tell that in their hour of sorrow and pain, God's servant is there for them. Just beautiful, beautiful. Um, there's so much, to say about this, and that I will have to probably skip today because it's a short message. But I think with this we have a lot, to think about, and but it is so important because I think that the big teaching over here is that we all struggle with complete tasks or to complete our mission, or and the question is, what do we do and how do we react, um you know how do we perceive ourselves, and how do we perceive others, or the task that we are not um defeating, or we are not going making it through. And so I think it's important that when we are in front, when we have something to do, when we want to get across a message, when we have something that we are asked to do, and we attempt the first time, second time, third time, we might be struggling, with trying to do it. Here is something that it says that when we find ourselves in moments of difficulty, the practice of anava, the practice of humility, of being humble, can push us to ask three questions. How might my impact be different than expected? Second question, how can I find the divine in this moment? Because God is always there with you. And three, how can the story of those who came before me support me at this moment? Important to know, right? Because in this parsha it says Vaera, right? And he appeared to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. So there's always a reminder. And he appeared as El Shaddai, but he never appeared, as Yud-Keh-Vav-Keh, as he appears to Moses. So there's some divine there, some divinity that has to be taken in consideration. So in times of failure, I ask you, how have you been able to use anava, to use humility to understand your stumbling? What forces do you think allowed Moses to rise to the occasion at their time of need? So when you struggle at home or at work or anywhere, use anava, use humility, be humble to consider unintended positive consequences to your actions. I wish you Shabbat Shalom to everyone.